I have started way too many series that I haven't finished. So 2025 is the year when I am going to catch up with them. So this is the list of book series that I'm currently reading that I intend to get up to date with in 2025. So the first series I need to catch up on in 2025 is The Cosmere by Brandon Sanderson. And that's a little bit of a cheat because the most recent book in the Cosmere is Wind and Truth, and I'm about 2/3 of the way through it. But I did start it in December, not long after it came out, and it's taken me a while to get through it because it's a chunky one. But other than some graphic novels, I've pretty much got myself up to date with the Cosmere once I've finished Wind and Truth, until Sanderson decides to release another 3,000-page books before the end of March. The next one I want to get up to date on is the First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. I read the first two parts, The Blade Itself and Before They Are Hanged, and I absolutely love them. So I'm really looking forward to reading the third part, Last Argument of Kings. And then when I've done that, I think I'd really like to dip into some of the other books in his First Law world. So some of the standalones like Heroes and Best Served Cold. Yeah, I have every intention of getting to them this year as well, because from what I've read so far, Joe Abercrombie stuff is just that good. And speaking of trilogies, where I read the first two parts and have yet to read the third, I want to read the third part of Jeff VanderMeer's Southern Reach trilogy, and that is Acceptance. I read the first two parts, Annihilation and Authority, in 2024. I loved Annihilation. Quite liked Authority. I liked it an awful lot better than most people did, but I really want to get on to Acceptance. And since then, he has actually completed a fourth part, so it isn't really a trilogy anymore, so that would be Absolution. So it'd be nice to be able to read both Acceptance and Absolution this year. As part of the I'm With the Band book club this year, where we read books that are banned or challenged in US schools, I read the first part of Margaret Atwood's Mad Adam series. It's a science fiction series, and the book was Oryx and Crake. I really loved Oryx and Crake, so this year I want to read the two other parts of that trilogy, The Year of the Flood and Mad Adam. If they're anything as good as Oryx and Crake was, then I'm in for a bit of a treat. And speaking of sci-fi, I want to continue reading the Bobiverse series by Dennis E. Taylor. The first part of this series, We Are Legion, We Are Bob, was recommended to me by a friend last year. I thoroughly enjoyed that. I really enjoyed the two follow-ups as well. They were good, but there are two more books in the series, Heaven's River and Not Till We Are Lost. And I think I might quite like to catch up with those ones as well, because I really quite enjoy Dennis E. Taylor's writing style. Another series which I started last year, I read the first part of and surprised myself by thoroughly enjoying, was the first part of the Red Rising series by Pierce Brown. There are 5 more books in that series, so I'm not certain I'll be able to get through all 5 of those this year, but they might be on the cards. I'll see how I get on with those. John over at Disquiet and Dragons is the reason that I started to read Red Rising, because that was a read-along in his Discord server. But the other thing that John is doing is he's doing an entire reread of everything by James Herbert this year, his favourite author. I don't know if I'm going to read everything by James Herbert, but I did towards the end of the year reread The Rats. So I hadn't read that for many years, and I forgot just how good it was. So I'm going to read the other two parts in that trilogy, Lair and Domain, because, can't get enough of creepy giant man-eating rats. Speaking of the creepy stuff, we've also got Stephen King. Last year, after reading 11/22/63, I got back into reading Stephen King for the first time in a while, and I picked up his Bill Hodges trilogy, which started with Mr. Mercedes and introduced the character of Holly Gibney. After the Bill Hodges trilogy, there are books that centre on Holly, and I have read The Outsider, but this year I'd like to read If It Bleeds and Holly, because Holly Gibney is just such a cool character, and yeah, I do just like reading Stephen King. Another lengthy series is Lee Child's Jack Reacher series, which I absolutely love, even though they're really, really silly. There are 29 books in the series, but thankfully, in order to get up to date, I've only got to read one, the latest one, In Too Deep, which came out last year. He'll probably release another one this year as well, because he releases one every year, so maybe I get to read 2 Jack Reacher books this year. And the final series that I'm definitely going to finish this year is, of course, Terry Pratchett's Discworld series. My reread of the entire Discworld series is kind of the reason I started doing this channel in the first place. And at the moment, I'm only a few books from the end. When that happens, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. Now, those are all series that I'm excited to read. There's a couple of other series that I haven't completed, which fall somewhere between not excited to read and might not read at all if I can get away with it. The first of those is the ACOTAR series, A Court of Thorns and Roses. Again, I have to thank I'm with the Banned Book Club for that one, where we read the first and second parts, A Court of Mist and Fury. And yeah, if the book club decides they want to continue reading that, I might, but I don't know if I really want to put myself through that. I don't think it's any particular secret that I wasn't a huge fan of those books, but if you want further proof, I'll put the link to my review for A Court of Mist and Fury here. And speaking of series that I wasn't a particular fan of, there is, of course, Robin Hobb's Realm of the Elderlings. I read the first trilogy in that, the Farseer trilogy, and again, I wasn't a fan. But a lot of people watched my video review of the Farseer trilogy. I say review, it was more of a rant really, and said that actually the series gets much better with after the Farseer trilogy, and specifically with the next series, which is the Live Ship Traders. So I'm semi-convinced to try the Live Ship Traders, but I don't know. I'll see how I get on this year. So that's my list of the 10 series that I'm going to get to in 2025, and the 2 that I probably won't. I hope you enjoyed that. If you want to see how I get on reading any of those books, then please consider hitting the subscribe button. In the meantime, thanks so much for watching, and take care.